Is this mic on? Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, wow, I've had this shearing neck pain. It's not shearing. That'd be like way worse than it had to be. But today, we're going to be doing a little longer form video than I usually do due to the fact that I have like the separate monitor running everything, and I started looking over there. However, we're going to do centers, small forwards, our forwards, shooting guards, point guards, switch bigs, combo guards, basically all my coverage for the NBA draft that I could think of. If you guys want to see what I have written as I work at hoopshype.com, I am putting the link in the description right as we speak. Now, I'd like to hear who you guys think is your favorite player in the draft, maybe your biggest sleeper in this year's draft. I'm really curious, as always. We're going to start off, as you guys see here, with my centers. I have like little things. I started doing videos for everybody, and then it took me so long to source and do all the videos in terms of like for each panel. So what I did instead was I said, F it. What we'll do is just the centers, and then the rest will just be photos. I'm sorry if that annoys anybody. I'm going to be quite honest. It took so long to get all the videos, and half of them were already on my channel, and I was just downloading them, and I was just amazed. So I think the whole thing is crazy. I also know there's a war going on in Pakistan. Oh my god, Pakistan is just wow. There's also a full-on war breaking out in Pakistan. I don't know if people know this. So I'm also monitoring that, I guess you could say, just as someone who's into geopolitics, and the ramifications of that could be like huge. So to me, knowing that, I don't even know why we're talking about that, but either way, we're here and we're ready to talk about some basketball. So we're going to go ahead. Thank God I haven't started recording. I know I'm streaming and I'm just talking. I was going to be cool and try another camera that I forgot to set up. And I'm trying to set it up right here, like at the last minute while I'm speaking. It's probably quite noticeable, but it hasn't gone according to plan. I also broke one of the legs. So what I could do is I have like another try. I have like if you guys were able to see like my office, the studio, you would see the inside of my brain. I also didn't put up the chat, so we'll have to open that up. It's also insane to think that in 4 days I'll be landing in Chicago. Third NBA Combine, G League, elite camp of my life. Been very privileged. First one I went as part of if you guys didn't know, I was part of a news station. Yes, your boy was a local reporter back in the day. And I went on the guise that I was going to get stuff for the station for KU players, which I did, in K-State players, because we were in Topeka, which I did. And then that led to me also using, when I was already gone from the station, my ability to get to the summer league. And after that, we got a job here with USA Today Sports, and I wasn't even supposed to do NBA draft stuff, and I kept pushing it, and we had a really successful year last year doing it. They liked the coverage, and they're having me do it again. And this year we expanded, as you guys know, went to Nike Hoop Summit, as second year going to Portsmouth, which I love Portsmouth, and Portsmouth is something I think if you're into scouting, you got to be watching Portsmouth. And it's afforded me some great opportunities. I'll be also, from my understanding, going to Euro camp again this coming May. Technically, it's also would be, because it happens at the end of May, I think on the 31st. So one could say that, it's also June, but let me see if this other camera is going to work. Because if it does, which is desk view. No, that's the wrong camera. Okay. So I have like to disconnect. Okay, I see what's going on. So we have two cameras here, and I'm trying to get like the other one working to be like nicer for you guys, to make this look prettier. And now you guys have also lost me in terms of where I look, but that's the biggest thing. Is I don't know why this is just giving us such a hard time in terms of, it really shouldn't be. It should be plug and play, and half the time when we're using it, it automatically connects, and it's like, hey, do you want to connect? And I'm like, actually no, at this time I don't. And you know, the redundancies of technology sometimes. But let's open up this chat and let's get the video going. If anybody's been hanging out here while I've just been play-by-playing myself here, thank you for being here. It's always appreciated. Let's also round of applause. 15,000. It's kind of cool to think this started when YouTube started 6th grade, 5th grade, like early 2010s, like 2010, 2009. I mean, even before 4th grade, man, we were doing like little skits and filming them on flip cameras. But round of applause, we hit 15K. We went from just making videos about video game GM stuff to making legit videos about NBA stuff, and then going to college for journalism. I mean, I'm graduated from my undergrad at Kansas, then did my master's at Miami, both journalism, and now doing my PhD. But fortunate to have worked as a local news reporter covering the State House, doing a little bit of sports on the side, mainly local news, city council, county commissions. I've been more city council and county commission meetings than any person should in their entire life. And that I use that opportunity to get myself credentials as a news person or media individual to the combine 3 years ago. Literally, I graduated from the University of Kansas, put my parents on a plane, told my girlfriend I loved her, soon to be fiance now, and 12 hours later, like let's say I went to sleep at 8 p.m. I think by 8 a.m. I got in the car, drove 8 hours to the first combine. Then when my first summer league, it's kind of crazy to think about that was 2023 and this is going to be the third one. I'm very fortunate, and as I said earlier, that led to me getting a job with USA Today Sports' hoopshype.com, which is, I think we always joke around, like, if you know what Hoops Hype is, I would say then I know you're more than just a basketball fan. Like, you are on basketball internet sites, Twitter, wherever you want, all the time. So the fact that I was able to get a job on a website that I go on all the time, it was really cool and very humbling, I would say, to the very least. So sorry for the whole rambling and doing this whole spiel thing. I just thought I share my thoughts. And look at that, we got it going. I knew we could do it. Now the whole thing, I told you guys might have thought, oh, Cyro, you're not going to be able. Oh, you're going to see the green screen. This is embarrassing. Keep it together, man. But check it out. We're able to do it. So I think this is how we're just going to go into this. I'm sorry for the whole thing. I thought I had this way more set up and ready for me to go ahead. I'm also going to take... Oh. I thought this was going to be way more accessible and easy. I thought we were just going to take it one at a time. I just think also now I look better. Not in an egotistical way, but in the sense that I think the camera quality looks better. However, let's get right into the 10 best centers in this year's NBA draft class. And I'd like to hear, before we start today's video, guys, Who do you think is the best center in this year's class? We have to my left, maybe you're right. Come on, we'll watch. Derek Queen, Thomas Sorber, Jean Berger. Is it Jon or Jean? I'm pretty sure it's Berger. I'm like 99. It's French. So that's just going off of what I've heard and intuition. Playing in Slovenia, but a Frenchman. Danny Wolf, not related to Joe Wolf, even though he is the son of Joe Wolf. Kind of like a offensive point forward. Ryan Kalkbrenner, Janai Broom, Vlad Golden. Can we just say for a second, if anybody remembers when Vlad Golden first came into college to what he is now, might be one of the most remarkable turnarounds in all of college basketball or even prospect development. Maxime Renaud, I know some people will say, well, he's a 7'1" power forward. I really think he would be like a switch big, probably play center just because of like his size and like ability. I think he can play center. And I think the last guy, the Australian Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee is my girlfriend's favorite player. We got our chap by the name of, is it Alex Condon? Condon. Like I'm saying condom, but with an N. I don't want to be disrespectful. Even though I kind of, like right there, somebody's probably going to be like, that was so rude of you. I didn't mean it like that. Now let's get right into it. We're going to talk, come on, we'll watch first. And this is a guy that I think everybody should be aware of. Now, he was heralded coming into college out of the NBA Academy as potentially the next Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's not. He's unfortunately, he's going to be, I think, a solid at the bare minimum upper level, I'd say, starter, maybe borderline all-star. He could probably be an all-star. I think it's all dependent on him maybe having to take a little bit of, here we go. I had this ready, but in reality, I didn't. So let's talk about our man, come on, we'll watch. By the way, I interviewed him a while ago at the G League Showcase when he was on the BAL team. This is the little interview stuff is actually me interviewing him. He was one of the first NBA players in person that I interviewed, or prospects, my apology. I had done players before. Now, come on, we'll watch. What do we look at when we see a guy like him? I had a scout tell me, multiple scouts go like a DeAndre Jordan, Rudy Gobert, and right here I'd say the way the consensus is, he's probably going to have a career, best case scenario, like a DeAndre Jordan, hyper athletic guy who's going to be scoring 70% from the field, dunk everything, be one of the best rebounders in the league, and maybe have a shot blocking ability and rim protection between DeAndre and Rudy Gobert. Saying that he's going to be an uber athletic version of Rudy Gobert would be the best case scenario. And obviously, I think anybody who is, a fan of basketball would love to have a guy that is Rudy Gobert defensively with DeAndre Jordan's athleticism, because then you'd be like, oh, this guy might be everything that we'd hope Rudy Gobert could do, except I don't know if he has the hands like DeAndre Jordan, and he might be, nothing against Rudy. He's had a great career, but he isn't the swiftest of hands or the most fluid of scores. But Kamal Mwatch is a towering rim protector who has the chase down block ability and the rare mobility. So he has the chase down block ability and the rare mobility for a guy at 7'2". He's going to be able to just block things out like he's Manute Bol. And his wingspan and ability to move allows him to cover ground, to be kind of like similar to what we see Victor Wembanyama. Obviously not saying he's going to be Victor Wembanyama, but we've seen with Donovan Clingan, Wemby, and a bunch of other guys, just the ability to alter shots without fouling and just contesting is huge. And he's shown some touch on the short roll jumper, but I think he's mainly just going to be like a lob threat dunk guy who's going to finish everything within 5 feet. and just not make many mistakes. He's been praised. When I talked to Coach Shire when he put after the game, he just said for a guy who just started playing basketball in the last 5 years, he's one of the most coachable guys he's ever had the honor of coaching. So that's always great to hear. All right, let's talk about the polished low post scorer that is Derek Queen. I think Derek Queen is one of the most interesting players in this draft because he could be really good or he could be just like a role player, which is there's nothing wrong with that. He's got an old school low post scorer type mentality. I've said multiple, his footwork and his touch. If he develops a hook shot, man, he's just Al Jefferson at this point. Like with not, and that's like a compliment because Al was able like to what Derek does, 6'9", 6'10", to be able to finish over larger defenders. And he's got good size. I think he needs to get in better shape, no offense, but he sees the floor well as a passer. He can pass out of the elbow post, even like we've said earlier, is he's someone who has an offensive skill set that could develop into an all-star. Like I've said, an Al Jefferson meets Julius Randle switch big, who, if he can tighten up his rim protection and continue to develop as a shooter, which, you know, he shot 20% on one attempt a game, but shot almost 80%, 77% from the free throw line, which we all know free throw shooting is indicative of your ability, potentially, they say, of stretching out down deep. Now, the other thing is he's going to be a 21-year-old rookie in December. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, that shouldn't matter. If he's going to be good, like, this guy does look like he could be the Black Alperen Şengün at times. And there's nothing wrong with him being 21. But him being 21, and if you're an executive and we're talking about just potential, you want a guy who's going to be 22 years old when he hits the age of extension. And I think that's the biggest thing right there. Is Derek, our man, going to be worth it at 25, 26 years old to give the rookie max? That's the big question. I don't want to be rude. I like the kid, but I like Thomas Sorber more. I know two scouts that I talked to for a team that's in the Eastern Conference playoffs currently said Sorber's been a guy that they've liked since not the playoffs, but since he was in high school. And they are a team that I know that they're in the market for a big, but for me, I think he's an immediate backup big or a complementary big for any team. I've seen a lot of people say, because the expectation is more watch, and I don't know if Derek Queen would work with Trae Young, but I've seen a lot of Sorber with Onyeka Okongwu projections. A lot of Danny Wolf's the other one, just a big with Onyeka Okongwu, and I actually really like that. And I think another team, the Mavericks, teams that already kind of have a center in place but might have some flaws. And Sorber is just broad, dude. This guy's huge. He's got soft hands. He can finish inside. He's able to either play back to basket or be a guy who can, operate out the elbow, hit a small jumper from there. Got great rebounding abilities, double, potential. And he's more of a drop coverage big. However, worst case scenario, he's the 6'10" version of Xavier Tillman, and that's no shame to Xavier. Xavier's great. But Thomas could be sometimes a little bit slow of foot. But for me, I think his passing's underrated, his ability to play defense, and the thing he does great, which I think people don't realize is an underrated skill, is being big when he sets screens. If you're able to get wide and make people have to run around you, I think that's going to keep you in the league, even if you're not a great offensive or defensive player. Now, the shooting and offensive creation and defense will be what decides if he goes from being just a long time backup player or a starter in this league. Now, John Berger at first was going to be one of my big sleepers, but it seems like everybody is in on him. And he's a guy that kind of like a longer Onyeka Okongwu. And I think that might be like at first what I thought. I'm getting told he's 6'11", and the way that this kid plays is he's a willing shot blocker. He loves just to run up. He knows he's athletic, and I love to watch players who know that they're athletic. And at 18, going to be turning 19, yeah, 5-5 is what he averaged, but he's playing Slovenia. He's athletic. He's a rim running big. All right. A guy whose offense might not ever grow outside the paint. He might just, at best case scenario, be a Mitchell Robinson-esque big, just slam everything down. But the fact that he's as physical as he is, and I know it's not the best league in Europe, but it's not a bottom tier league in Europe like Hoku was playing in. And I think his hustle and his motor are what you're betting on when you look at a kid who's doing this. And the fact that he's energetic, and we've seen what Derek Lively and Khalil Ware have been able to do for playoff teams. I'm going to take the fact that his hands, his verticality are going to be able to translate. Yeah, he remains a little bit raw in positional defense, and he's going to be a guy who's going to overcommit and bite, but he has all the traits you want from a high-end backup to a guy who easily could be a Nick Claxton, Onyeka Okongwu-esque big, Mitchell Robinson type, like in that grouping. I'd take that because of the athleticism, the motor, and the length. I'm cool with that. That's a guy that I'm going to take usually in a draft, especially if I have another big. Again, a lot of the bigs in this draft are bigs you want if you already have a big in place that they're going to complement your big that you have. And I think this is another guy who is great if you already have somebody in place. Again, we talked the Mavericks, the Hawks are teams that are guys to consider. So keep an eye out for that. I think the Heat did it last year, so they're out on that. But there's plenty of teams that if we go ahead and look in the market, especially once we start going through the playoffs and have an idea of what moves are being made, I think teams like the Suns, people have said the Grizzlies should get another big. So have people said about the Magic. I think the Wizards are going to be in the market for a big. Teams that have guys who are going to be up for extension that they might not want to pay. That's where I think are all possible, where you just need to keep your eyes open. And I think it's really a guy like Danny Wolf is somebody who, if you have a defensive big, and this is me not trying to be rude, Danny Wolf, look, I think he's going to be guaranteed a high-level role player. I would say him to become a starter in the league, it's going to take him to develop a bit more defensive skills. He's going to obviously, day one, going to be mismatch hunted, but the passing, the ability to space the floor, the corner threes, the fact that he can initiate the offense either from the high post or from the elbow as a big. I've said it before, he's sort of like a offensive Kyle Anderson without a 7-foot version of Kyle Anderson without the defense. Like, he's an average athlete. He's got the skills and toolkit to be good in terms of helping a second unit just run and keeping the offense flowing, a willing rebounder. However, in a league that in transition and in space, you're thinking that best case scenario defensively, and I think Luke Cornett's way more athletic than Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf was not just under 10 rebounds, 13 points. He's got the skill and the pass first ability that you want and can be a primary ball handler in college. I think obviously he's going to be a secondary playmaker at best. But I think the fact that you can't keep him in late game situations, and he's not going to be able to contain the Joel Embiids, the Jokic's of the world, the Jonas Valanciunas, the Sabonises. Like, even Khalil Ware or Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford are going to dunk on him. Like, that's not me trying to say, oh, he's just a white Jewish guy. Hey, fellow Jew right here, like part of the tribe. It's just in the NBA, I think, is going to be able to work in spurts, but it's the fact that he's not, like, moving over here to Ryan Kalkbrenner in a difference. Like, Ryan Kalkbrenner is a bit longer and bigger. He's a drop coverage big, old school style. A guy that, if you did not watch college basketball the last 4 years, then I would say Ryan Kalkbrenner is sort of like Brook Lopez with maybe less offense, skinnier, but I think moves a bit better. 19 points, 9 rebounds, shot 34% from 3. And yeah, you're looking at a poor man's Brook Lopez. I think that's to say it. A 4-year rim protector, 4-year defensive player of the year in his conference. He's actually got a little bit of passing ability. If there's a cutter in the dunker spot or back door, he'll find him, especially guys coming off of, secondary actions. He'll find it. And he can space the floor with the corner 3, I wouldn't say initiate offense, but connect offense and finish plays, as we just said. And to me, it's the anchoring, the drop coverage, the ability to contest at the rim. 7'1". I bet you 7'4", 7'5" wingspan. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me right now, but just the size that he has there, he's going to be an NBA backup big day one. Yeah, will people in pick and roll situations, his foot speed will depend if he's Neemias Queta or if he's going to be poor man. Like, best case scenario, he's the backup version of Brook Lopez, end of the career, or Brook Lopez with a little bit more flight of foot. Worst case, he's Neemias Queta. I think Neemias is a little bit bigger, but I don't think that's like really a bad career to say if it pans out that way. Now, let's move on to Maxime Renaud, who I think, if we look at Maxime, he's an interesting guy because the offense, baby. He's a guy who can end up being kind of like, I don't want to say the Naz Reid of this class. And what I mean by that, Naz went undrafted. But Renaud, my apology, Maxime Renaud is a guy who ended up developing into one of the better college players in basketball. He's able to knock down the pick and pop, be a trailing big man. He'll finish at the rim. He's got the lateral quickness to guard both 4s and 5s. He's I'd argue, just as good as Vlad Golden and Janai Broom as drop coverage bigs. He's not as good as Ryan Kalkbrenner, but he's able to do a similar thing and is a better offensive player and shooter. Can pass, can kind of be an off the bench scorer. And the fact that he has a true face-up game to knock down jumpers and potentially be a day one backup big who can play both the 4 and the 5, I think that's the biggest intrigue with him. And he's absolutely phenomenal. I had a buddy tell me beginning of the year, he was like, he's going to be player of the year. He's like, just watch it. And he's a guy that will surprise you. 1.5 blocks a game, 11 rebounds, almost 20 points, 47% from the field and 35% from 3. Maxime Renaud, this is the guy you want to take if you're a team that's looking for a multi-positional big, so 4 and 5 switch big, who can guard both of those positions and give you a little bit of offense and give you some defense. Also from France, so if it doesn't work out here, dude goes overseas, enjoys life. Like, he's gonna have a good one. He's gonna be good regardless. Next up, let's talk about a guy that I actually started to fall in love with during the tournament. I didn't think much of him, and this was really the Australian Mason Plumlee, Alex Condon, right? A guy, I think in the NBA, people want him to play 5. He's just going to be an undersized 5, even though he's 6'11. He's the typical, steal lunch pail, pull yourself up by the bootstrap, hardworking Aussie. Yeah, he averaged just under 11 points, 7.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1 steal, 1.3 blocks. He shot 33% almost from the field, just under 50%. A guy that the people are going to be like, none of his stats stand out. He just does everything. He hustles. He helps make the team better. And I think that's the type of player more and more you're seeing be the backup bigs. Aaron Baines, Daniel Tice, they've made careers out of that. Look at Jock Landau. Like, there's just being a pro. And I think he's somebody who can, at the beginning of his career, I think he'll be able to play a little bit of 4, especially if he stretches the floor. But as I said, have that Mason Plumlee athleticism, be a guy who can maybe stretch the floor a little bit. Definitely gonna be able to be a connected piece in secondary or tertiary facilitator as a passer, and can switch onto smaller players and be a guy who can be a 5. I think definitely once he bulks up, he'll on the latter half of his career, he'll be a full-time 5. But right now, I think he's a guy who has the athleticism to play the 4, but I think really they'll try it, but I think at the end of the day, he's going to be a pure 5. And it screams Mason Plumlee for me in my head when I watch him. Fantastic guy, and someone that we've talked about this repeatedly. If you have a center in place already, he's the one that you want to bring in. And he's somebody that I think Dallas, the Grizzlies, could look into, especially if they need a third guy. Now, Janai Broome was someone that I legitimately think could be the defensive version of Naz Reid, as he's going to be a second-round pick, maybe undrafted. I could be wrong. I doubt he goes in the first. He's a physical interior force. He's got nice touch inside. He got a great drop step, I think. He has the strength and the positioning skills to rebound over people, and his athleticism and explosiveness is average at best, but he's a guy that I think his career is going to be a tough, reliable big who could be a spot starter, bridge starter, whatever you want to call him, but a reliable backup who's going to come in, give you defense, play hard near the basket, make people just compete for everything. And for someone who averaged 19 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, the reason why I think he could be the Reid is if it all pans out, he's a guy who could end up having a career being a team's starter that develops on a good team, on a contending team that needs him to be their backup. And then down the road, when he hits free agency, he's built up an offensive repertoire that he goes and gets the opportunity and just is able to prove that he can be a commodity. And he's just someone that when I saw him at the combine, he dominated. He was big. And I think that always when you see players, especially ones that dominate the combine and then go back, you have a lot of faith just because of their work ethic and everything that they've been able to prove since the year that you first initially saw them. So that's my 2 cents on that one. And the last one is Vlad. I don't know if you guys have seen Vlad or heard of him, but dude, when he first came into college basketball, you didn't have faith that he was going to figure it out. When he would rebound, it looked like he was playing volleyball. And the way that he's grown as a basketball player is fantastic. I've heard multiple people just really, really speak highly of him and believe that he's going to be someone who is going to have the ability to contribute immediately as a reserve big. And I agree with that. I think at worst, you're looking at maybe like an Ariel Huckforty situation where you're like, okay, if the glass has to be broken, he can come in his first year. I think you want him to go in the G and spend some time there just conditioning, getting in acclimated. But the Ruski, 17 points, 7 rebounds, He's someone who's going to be able to protect the rim. And I think at the end of the day, he's just hard nosed, gritty, somebody that, yes, he is kind of a traditional post player, especially on the defensive and offensive side. But the willingness to just to go out there, block shots, protect the rim, set screens, compete on the glass, and do everything that needs to be done to help his team win doesn't go unnoticed lightly by teams. And I think that's something that people need to realize, why he's going to be someone that I personally think teams are going to be calling if they need another big. And especially if you're a team like the Pelicans, that you're going to probably have Carlo Matikovic and Yves Messi. And if you're not like confident that you're going to get yourself an option in free agency, I think the biggest thing is doing what I just said and getting yourself a guy like Vlad Golden. Now, I realized after I'd made this initial graphic, I moved it, Maxime, then Alex, then Janai, and then Vlad. And I have it as the old way, so we changed it up. Let me hear your thoughts on that one. And yeah, we're going to go on to the next position, and that's going to be power forward. So to me, I think power forward is going to be one of those classes that people are also going to be like, well, Cyro, is that how you're considering power forwards? And I think this is why later we'll have the whole decision or debacle of combo forwards and all these positions of who should be who, which also could be another stream at another time. But for combo forwards, I think right here, what we're seeing is Cooper Flag, power forward, combo forward, whatever you want to call it. I think he is going to be a 4, and I think he'll moonlight at the 3, just like he'll moonlight in small ball lineups as a 5. However, I think he is a 4, and that's why it's not like I'm not high. I think he's a great player. He's obviously not a generational talent, but he's going to be a guy who has a good chance of being an all-star. Now, what is it with Cooper Flag that you got? You got a guy who's one of the hardest workers, people said, has the switchability to guard every single position, has shown that not only can he defend the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, he can be a weak side rim protector. He has drop coverage skills. He has the ability to keep his hips open and, not be a target, for offensive players that attack on closeouts. You can go from being a point of attack defender as a wing defender to being an interior guy. Like, I honestly think Evan Mobley is I personally think he's more of a big, and I think he's going to be like an Evan Mobley type player. And I think his stats show that he was one of, if not the best college player we've seen in a while. Granted, he was on a super loaded team, but he's the real deal. He's got everything. And the biggest thing is figuring out, does he have the shot creation and the ball handling? That'll keep him from being a first option to a second option. And yeah, so it's just that I don't feel like there's a need to spend time on Hoop like as if he's going to be someone that we don't already know about. So I just wanted to get out and say all of that. And I wanted to just, explain. I also like how, for some reason, we just went from having this all situated perfectly fine for ourselves. But there we go. Let's go ahead and talk about the best power forwards. So, like I said, number 1 is obviously going to be big boy Cooper Flag. The big question with him is the shot creation. Does he have the ability to be more than a secondary option who's going to catch and shoot, play off of secondary actions, and have guys create most of the time for him than creating for himself? And I think that's something he could develop. And the whole thing is with him, he's one of, if not the hardest working guy people have said they've ever seen. So to me, for a guy who has the same age, or his twin brother is entering college now, aka he should have been in high school. He is an absolute freak, and to me, one of the more exciting players we've seen in a while. So let's move over to Noel, who I think is a guy that this is a switch big. He really reminds me of Nick Claxton. The big question with Noel is if the 3-point shot doesn't work out, he also needs to be 6'11". They'll make him more enticing than being 6'9". We've seen conflicting reports, but the whole thing with him is that he needs to be a shooter. If he's going to be a 4, he needs to be able to like at least be respectable, maybe like a Thomas Bryant level shooter to be able to play the 4 and 5. If not, he has to get big enough to play the pure 5, which I think if you look at him like that, I'd rather go that route than trying to develop him as a 4. But a lot of people see him as a 4, but he's a switchable big who can day one impact the game defensively. He blocks shots, runs the floor, flashes stretch potential, and his offensive game is still finding an identity outside of doing what he feels naturally, but I think he can be decent. Now let's move over to our boy Colin Murray Boyles. He's someone who's flown up the boards, probably could have been a first round pick last year, has gone up into lottery contention this year. I think if he goes in the lottery or something like that, it's to a contending team. It's to a day one team that doesn't need his offense to be productive. As I say that, what do I mean? They need a guy like Colin Murray Boyles to be their power forward who can defend multiple positions. And they're hoping that his offensive game can somewhat be like Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn's more of a small forward, but Colin needs to just be able to be respectable enough. Colin, similarly to Dunn, is coming in as a notoriously bad shooter. I personally think shooting is one of the easiest things to fix. The thing with him is I like him. I like him if I get him outside the lottery. I think if I'm a team outside the lottery and he falls there, I trade up or we just go and we try to get him. If I'm a lottery team, I just don't think that's the kind of guy, unless like he fills a hole that we desperately need. Personally, that's just not what I go for, but he's going to be able to guard every position. He's got some passing ability. Worst case scenario, he's a Jay Crowder, Grant Williams hybrid. Best case scenario, man, he's a guy who's going to be an all NBA defensive team member or all defense team member for a long time, who's going to stretch the floor and really help a lot of teams out. And I really do mean that. So he's just someone that a lot hinges on the shot coming around to define his role. Now, Noah Sengun, right, is someone that I really, really enjoy. He got better as the year went on. His 3-point shot went from looking like it was going to be a long ways away, but in reality, he closed out the year shooting at a really decent clip. The thing I like about him is the athleticism. He plays like a wing. He's a combo forward. He's a guy who can be a weak side rim protector. He's got the verticality and the athleticism and the lateral quickness to go inside and out. It's the offensive game that needs polish. But what we saw at the end of the year, where at least he could be a 3-point shooter, it's the fact that the motor never stops. He can be a transition threat. That if I'm a team, especially that he's playing for they've done a good job developing guys. And I think you're a team, maybe like the Hornets or somebody, or a team that already has a power forward or players as starters. And I've said it, and I think people are also agreeing, and the Hornets probably know it. Dejan Saloon was a bit of a disappointment. I could see the Hornets, if they wanted to get another pick, or if they fall really far back in the lottery, if like that unfortunately happens, he's a guy that they could go for. But even I think the Jazz wouldn't do it because they have, Taylor Hendricks is coming back from a horrific injury, but people who want an athletic player who's got all the tools, 7 foot plus wingspan, he's someone to be interested in. I had a scout for a playoff team tell me he really hopes Rasheer Fleming falls. He really hopes. He loves. Oh, my apology. That's definitely not what I wanted. But what I was gonna say is Rasheer Fleming is a guy that I think people are like, oh, the shot just came around just now. It's not legit. Don't believe it, dude. He hit 40%, I think, on like 5, 6 threes a game. Like, it wasn't on a small sample size. It's not like he went from being a bad shooter on a small clip to a good shooter on the same small clip. No, he like just increased everything and it went together. He's a 4. He can probably play small ball 5. He can moonlight on at the 3. I think the biggest thing with him is I don't know if he'll be anything more than I've said. Like, offensively, I think he's a guy can give you double digit points, but will it be outside of catch and shoot, finishing, a cut or in transition? I think him being athletic, active, he's 6'9" with a 7 foot plus wingspan. Doesn't have much of a handle. Like, he's not going to dribble penetrate and draw fouls being downhill. But again, there's multiple teams that are playing teams, fringe playoff teams, or teams that have bad years that need backup 4s or need help spacing the floor. And I think they're all going to be looking at Rasheer Fleming, who's going to be able to guard the 5, the 4, the 3, and maybe even some 2s as someone that they're going to be interested in because of those multi-positional abilities. Now, I think the biggest thing with my next guy is Carter Bryant. I know some people are going to be like, is he a power forward? Is he a wing? We go back to the combo forward conversation. And this kid could be really good. I say he's the Trey Murphy, even though Trey Murphy's more of a wing. It's a guy who's going to slowly, we already knew people loved him. Also, knows sign language, his story, his background, where his family like coaches, his grandfather, I believe it is one of like the greatest deaf players of all time. It's a really unique story, but he's a long, athletic combo forward who defends well, has shown shot making ability. He played off the bench really just for Arizona, but the athleticism, the size, 6 foot, like look at him. He's like a kid, dude. He's like a teenager and he's filled out like that. That's what you want. He's definitely going to measure in, hopefully, I think 7 foot plus wingspan from just the look of it. His offensive game is still coming together, but the fact that he knows how to run the floor in transition, either with the ball in his hands or without it. He can block shots and be a guy who can be a Peyton Watson-esque defender while offensively, like I said, shows flashes of just being a bomber who then has the athleticism just to get to the rim and has a little bit of some dribbles moves to be a threat in transition or to dribble penetrate. I think he has all the tools to be like a really good. I think he's a bit of a project. Like, you got to go to probably not a contending team or a playoff team, but let's talk about my favorite player in this draft. Bogalajub Markovic, aka Bogey. Yes, Bogalajub Markovic. I interviewed him at Nike Hoop Summit. Fell in love with him when I was in Italy a year ago, or 3 weeks will be a year ago. Covering Eurocamp for Adidas and Hoops Hype at my YouTube channel. I don't know why this is becoming like a real weird way of me saying this, but Markovic is a guy, after watching him, I think he's someone that has the potential to be really freaking good. It's a Pascal Siakam, Santi Aldama hybrid. He moves like Santi Aldama, just the gazelle, has the shot blocking ability of Pascal. Like, he defends like Pascal, and offensively, I think he's a mix again of Pascal. He's the dribbling and the shooting ability kind of like Santi does, but he's way more aggressive and confident and just willing to dunk. And he's also longer than Santi, kind of long, like even though I think he only has like a 7'7" wingspan on a 6'11" frame, he is a pass, dribble, shoot player who I think will more than likely be an MVP in Europe if it doesn't work out in America. But if it works out here, he's got the rare perimeter shooting to help day one, to be a guy who's going to stretch the floor. He's going to be able to be a weak side rim protector who probably guards threes too. He can moonlight at the 3 and at the 5, especially once he fills out. But the guy has all the tools to scale up and actually be maybe an all-star. And that's the biggest thing with me when I look at him, is the fact that you have the pass, dribble, shoot tools, and he's just aggressive, and he's got a motor. He's a willing defender. Now, Yaxel Lindenberg is someone that I don't know if stays in the draft. He's an athletic slow-mo Kyle Anderson. Like, if he had athleticism at this level, this is a high motor player who hustles, grabs rebounds, defends, who thrives in transitions, will set hard screens, crash the glass, and hustle at every facet. He's transferring to Michigan if he doesn't stay in the draft. And he's someone that's climbed up the boards. I think he's a guy that if you're a team like the Grizzlies, the Heat, the Mavericks, the Bucks, would all love to get. Teams that don't have a pick would love to trade for him. And the Suns are another. Like, so many teams that need help defensively would love this guy. Pacers would love this guy. He's getting better as a shooter. He's athletic. He can be the X factor. He has the length. I just think with him being a Swiss Army knife, at the very least, he's going to be a decade-long role player. Could end up being maybe like a power forward version of Jaden McDaniels. And seriously, he's also incredibly well built, and he's a senior, so it's not like he's a kid. Now, this is the bigger defensive, or the lankier version of Dario Saric, Michael Ruzic. Yes, Michael Ruzic, playing in Spain. He's Croatia, and he's an interesting cap. Yeah, he averaged like under 4 points a game, 1.5 rebounds. His stats really don't scream anything if you're watching him, or looking at his stats, but the way that the guy can dribble the basketball, operate from the short corners or the elbows or the post, and have the passing and connectivity to help a team out. Flashes as a shooter. He's got the mobility to guard both the 4 and 5. He's kind of skinny right now, but he's shown, I think, more of a weak side rim protector, and he's a lot more willing to play defense than you would think. I think he's a pure 4-5. Some people are going to say he's going to be able to play the 3. I don't know if I'd play him at the 3, but what you got here is a guy who's probably more of a gadget player, a master of all, jack of all trades, master of none situation. But if you play it all right, I think he's a guy that can develop into, as I said, a better defensive version of Dario Saric or Nemanja Bjelica. And that's a pretty solid spot starter, heavy minute off the bench role player that plenty of teams are going to want to have. So that's someone that I would definitely keep an eye on if he stays in the draft. He's also someone that I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls out and enters again next year because he's young enough. And finally, we'll talk about a guy that it's not that we were lied to. I like Ethan Almanza. He was heralded as like one of the best NBA prospects or out of Spain since Ricky Rubio, which was like a huge expectation to put on the kid. He actually played a lot of center for the G League Ignite and wasn't great, but wasn't terrible. He's always been compared as like the Spaniard version of Al Horford, which I've always thought was a great comparison. He's definitely a switch big. And if the shooting comes around, he struggled in Australia. Again, you have to earn your minutes there. They don't just give them to you. But the ability to probably guard 4s and 5s, he's a willing player. He's got a bunch of accolades. Yes, he doesn't have that burst or shiftiness, but he knows how to score and play within an offense. He just has a passiveness to his game that's a bit annoying. Like he's like fully content disappearing, and like sometimes he's aggressive, and then when he is, you're like, this is the guy that we want to see more frequently. And then there's other times where you're watching him and he also just doesn't look like he's utilizing his tools to the best of his ability. So he's a frustrating player that then at other times he looks like he could be a really good offense. Like I think a high risk, high reward player, a guy that maybe if he finally just comes over to America and develops properly on a team a year or two in the G, he can end up being probably one of the better second round picks in this year's draft. Now, I think the biggest problem with him is that the athleticism needs to translate. If it doesn't, he's got to get big enough and be able to play. Like he has to be able to play the 4 and the 5. If it doesn't, it's going to be hard. And in Perth, look, his per 36 was 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 1.6 assists, under a block and under a steal a game. Not like great numbers, but like not terrible. So good swing player for your power forward position. Now let's move over to our next one, guys, and that is going to be small forward. Yes, small forward is definitely a position that I think is, interesting. I'm also going to go maybe a little bit quicker on these. I feel like I'm taking my sweet time, but hope you guys are enjoying. So let's talk about these small forwards: Ace Bailey, Liam McNeely, Colin Knippel, Nick Clifford, Hugo Gonzalez, Miles Bird, Alex Tui, Jameer Watkins, and Drake Powell and Adu Thiero, whom Adu is a freak of nature. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him. Let me change this right here for the small forward positions. And let's start off with Ace Bailey, a guy who's probably going to go third overall. Athletic version of Michael Porter Jr. is the easiest way to say the TLDR on him. And he's a great player. I think a lot of people would agree that, look, took a lot of shots in college. And I think he's not going to have that like leash to take those many shots, or the green light to take those many shots in the NBA. But the explosiveness that he has the guard-like movement with his creation. He can finish above the rim. He can protect the paint. He can step out to knock down the three-point shot. It's the combination of the athleticism, the length, the creativity that potentially could make him a matchup nightmare on that side of the ball. It's what everybody wants. Now, is it as good as people are saying, or is it all in theory? And I think at worst his floor is pretty like high, but this is another guy. Liam McNeely came in as a really hyped up prospect. He had a really bad year shooting the ball, but listen to this. 122 of his attempts were from catch and shoot threes. He hit those at 36.6%. He got injured. He ended up showing he's kind of more of a, I think he is going to be a good 3-point shooter, and he could be one of the better ones, if not the best in this class. He's got great mechanics. He thrives off ball. He can initiate. He's also not a guy who should be initiating stuff. He's just an unselfish player who has got good awareness positionally. And if he does develop as a secondary playmaker, he can maybe follow like a Denny Avdia type, career like path. I think he's more likely to be like a Duncan Robinson, floor spacer with some playmaking ability, that if he does develop the ability to always have a rhythm, then it can work out great. He just needs to show that he can defensively be good, and just that he doesn't need to be a starter, and he can play off of injuries or off the bench and not need to have his confidence get shook. Now, I think Colin Knippel is someone I like better, and you would probably argue he would be in front of Liam McNeely, and I would say yes, too. I think Con and Liam are either toe-to-toe. If not, I think Con is better. I think Colin Knippel is a guy that I really, really like. I think he's someone that, as a pure shooter, he's able to show that not just can he help a team space the floor, I think he's DeAndre Hunter with a little bit less defense, but he's actually a lot more athletic, bigger than people think, but has the hustle, the creativity, and just the cardio to run, relocate, and get open. He's got the quick release, and he's actually got the strength to create separation off screens and to punish teams who, drop or go behind screens, and especially in situations where he is the ball handler in a pick and roll. And his defensive impact is a lot better than people would think for a white guy. So I think he's just someone that I've fallen in love and thought that people have still put Liam McNeely in front of him, but I think, yeah, he might not be like flashy or elite. The way he just reads the floor and his basketball IQ, you can't teach that, and that's something I thoroughly enjoy when watching him. So he's someone, if you guys haven't been watching, keep an eye out for. Nick Clifford, I think, is it Nick or Nick? Either way, he went from Colorado to Colorado State. Interesting story. Got just better every year. I think he's Aaron Wiggins of this draft class. He does everything: scores, rebounds, defends, makes reads. He averaged like 19 and 10 this year. Shot 38% from the field, or from three, 50% from the field. He's the glue guy you want in the NBA. He's going to come in, impact day one. And some people are going to say like, oh, he might not be ready, but he's the classic do stuff, all right, wing. He's going to be able to play the two. He's going to be able to play the three and the small ball four. He's got the shot, and I think he plays with energy. And now the shot making creation is what's going to keep him from being, a potential starter to a high-end bench player. But at the very least, like I said, Aaron Wiggins with a better jumper, and I think a career path like Aaron Wiggins is relatively realistic for a guy like him. So Nick Clifford's someone to keep your eyes out for. Now, Hugo Gonzalez was a really big-time player coming out of Spain for a while, and the shot making and minutes have not, and obviously he hasn't been able to display it even if he wanted to because the minutes haven't came, but he's another guy, Swiss Army gadget player, athletic slasher, and lockdown perimeter defender is what I would categorize him as of right now. He has the burst to attack on closeouts. He finishes through contact, and he's great in transition. He's got length and the discipline to be a disruptive on-ball defender. It's the jump shot that's the swing skill. He's a good passer. He went from being a guy that people thought was going to be like a shooting guard, point guard, to being more of a wing, even though he's big. I think the whole thing with him is that like he's got passiveness. He doesn't assert himself, and it's just the rawness. He has all the tools, the ball handling, and the feel for the game. It's just like he doesn't shoot. Like you want him to develop into a 3-and-D wing at worst if the shot comes around, but potentially he's a guy that I think he's going to be in the NBA for a while because he has the tools you want to see as a role player. But I understand the frustration if you're a fan of his and you're just like, this guy never gets minutes. He's not gotten minutes. He's on Real Madrid and he stayed there. A lot of his peers like Ethan Almanza left and he's just stayed behind and doesn't get minutes, and the minutes he does, it's not like his shots are falling, but I think he competes, hustles, and does everything you want from a guy outside of that, setting. Miles Bird, coming from San Diego State, he's gotten better throughout the season and throughout his career. And did I spell Miles wrong? No, he spells it with an I. Why did I think Miles spelled it with a Y? Either way, 6'7", swingman, probably play the 2 or the 3, big twos. And yeah, his stats aren't like the most flattering, but I think he's somebody that the multi-positional ability as a defender 1 through 3, especially on offense, he can play the 2, he can put the ball on the deck a little bit. He's a willing shooter. I think that the fact that he has that secondary playmaking ability and he can create for others in transition, he's able to score off ball screen actions, and he just competes on the defensive end. The shot's workable. I think shooting's the easiest skill to teach. He has the two-way makings of a rotation piece, and I think that's what you're looking for if you're in the draft always. So keep an eye out for that. Alex Tui, if you've been following Australian basketball, he's a guy who's been in the market for a few years now. And I've always liked Alex. He's a guy who's going to be a combo forward in the NBA. I think his career is probably going to be like George Niang. Just a guy who's stoic, tough, who's going to excel as a shooter if that's what falls. He's excellent off cuts. He plays great off ball. He reads help defenses well, and he can switch on to bigger, smaller opponents. And yeah, the shooting and athleticism is average. I think that's why the shooting is going to be what he needs to hone in on as a specialist. But the feel, the IQ, and the fact that he's 6'9" is like what you're cool with that. And to me, 11.5 points, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.5 steals, shot 34% from three. Like I'll take those. I'll take those numbers. Okay, they're not bad, and he's gonna be someone that I think teams are gonna enjoy. Jameer Watkins is a Leonard Hamilton special, 6'7", 6'6". I'd bet on these intangibles. He's got the skills. He's got the work ethic. You got a guy who's probably going to be, at worst case scenario, like a Torrey Craig type role player who's going to defend the 1, the 2, the 3, maybe even small ball 4. He rebounds well for his position. He pressures the passing lanes, and he's going to flash secondary ball handling ability as his shot making or shooting ability, I think, becomes more consistent. He's a guy who could be a threat for a contending team that needs to help flesh out the back end of their bench, as he'll rebound, he'll hustle, he'll play hard, and he plays within a system, and coaches won't have to worry about him. So I think that's a guy that teams are going to really like. I think the whole thing is if the waiver goes through, he's going to play another year of college ball because he's a second-round pick. Now, Drake Powell, I think, is an interesting guy here. And Drake is somebody that I think is going to be an interesting pick, as he was a highly recruited player and he's got all the defensive chops. But the big thing with him was he just didn't have a great, standout or great impact. You didn't feel that he was there. He put up 7.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1 assist, just under a block and steal game. I think he's going to be a great defender. Shot 48% from the field, 38% from 3. He has everything you want from an athleticism standpoint, the tools, the high-end athleticism, as I just said. I guess, you could say he's raw, nothing stands out, doesn't do anything crazy, but I think the length, the verticality, and just that him being actually naturally a decent shot selector, or his shot selection isn't anything grotesque, and that he contests shots, he finishes in transition. He's going to be someone who probably you need to spend a year or two fleshing out things, but you got a lot to work with there. And that's the similar thing with Thiero right here, who some people are out on, some people are in on. But I saw him play against Miami. Yeah, I think he went to the free throw line 8 times and he missed 7 of them or 6 of them. The way he was just going, I think you develop him kind of like a Kogier or Isaac Okoro, hoping he can just be a low volume 3 and D guy. But he's someone who can play the 2, the 3, or the 4 just solely off the fact that he has upper echelon athleticism. He's a freaking buff freak of nature who's an explosive defender who thrives in switch heavy schemes. As I just said, you're hoping that he pans out like a Lou Dort type defender with maybe Isaac Okoro, Josh Okogie, 3-point shooting ability, but with the willingness to be a downhill just threat, to just go downhill like he's the come bucket Jonathan Kuminga, and just it's insane. But on defense, he has the athleticism to recover on rotations, be a weak side rim protector, finish a fast break if he grabs the rebound. And I don't like him dribbling much, but his straight line drives and putbacks are insane. He just needs to develop his jumper, and it could be a different game for him. But he's someone that I think is absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, that was the small forwards, and we'll do shooting guards next as we wrap this up, because A, getting hungry, B, I think we'll do all the positions and my sleepers, and then we'll do the rest of everything tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow in the morning we'll do the rest of them. So let's go ahead and talk about shooting guards. So let's talk about this one. VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson, Ben Seraph, Jace Richardson, and LeBaron Philon, who I love, Will Riley, Cam Jones, Isaiah Evans, Dink Pate, Chaz Lanier. I think that's a solid crop. We'll start on VJ Edgecombe. I'd say he's a cross of, he's got like Victor Oladipo-esque athleticism, but needs to work on the left hand. And he has, however, more of an offensive game akin to Hassan Wallace in terms of it being a combo guard with point guard like skills. Dude, this guy is so much fun. Like, I just don't think you understand like how fun it is to watch a guy who can dunk the basketball, create for others, and he's coming from a system like Baylor that he's going to be defending. So that's why I have here as part of my, as I showed you guys, number one, VJ coming in with Trey, then Ben, Jace, LeBaron, Will, Cam, Isaiah, Dink, and Chaz as the top 10. And I just think, yeah, like you look at VJ with that Victor Oladipo-esque athleticism and the point guard skills without a left hand akin to Hassan Wallace. I think you're hoping that he's going to be able to go to a team like the Pelicans, which everybody expects, but be a day one, I think, help on the perimeter defensively. Offensively, you're going to wait because of what this Bohemian prospect can do. He just jumps off the screen with the athleticism, the defensive energy. Coming out of a school like Baylor is huge because he plays with a nonstop motor. He knows how to read team offenses. He'll lock down his opponents. They won't attack him on closeouts. He's going to be a point of attack defender who's an all-defensive team member perennially. And the shot creation is showing there. If his left hand and just handle and ability to dribble, penetrate, and play make for himself and others develop, this guy's going to be a two-way nightmare. And I don't know how you solve it. So, or how you stop him. Like, he's going to be a guy who has all-star potential. It could be like the top 3 player in this class. Trey Johnson, people have said, is the 6'5", 6'6" version of Cam Thomas. I understand that. I think he's maybe a little bit more Alec Burks with more scoring, with more athleticism, but the 3-level scoring ability. Yes, he has tunnel vision, but he's just got such a repertoire offensively. He'll get buckets, and yeah, he's not like an elite athlete. I think maybe like a Terrence Ross type athlete, which I think is still great. I think what you want, I'm not worried about him becoming a playmaker. Maybe just pass the ball and not be like a tunnel, getting tunnel vision all the time, but just try on defense a bit more and be able to be someone who's going to not only score points, but help the team win. Like, know how to go from scorer to Malik Beasley, if that makes sense. And I think Malik, it took him a while to figure that out. And that's where, what I mean by that is go from being a guy who shoots to being a guy who helps your team win a game because of your shooting. And he's shown the ability to be an on-ball scorer, and he's shown he can be an off-ball scorer, but it's be a more willing off-ball scorer who already can thrive in catch and shoot scenarios as he's a confident on-ball pull-up threat. It's just also adding strength, but I think ironing out those kinks are the biggest thing. But like it's there. You want to run with it, so I like it for those reasons, and I think a lot of other people do too. So Ben Serif, I think he's more of a combo guard. He says his inspiration is Vasilija Mizic. I love Ozzy Mizic. He's taller. He's like 6'5", 6'6". He's got the creative scoring ability and playmaking to be kind of like a Vazi Goran Dragic mix, and he's got like a great handle, can pull out dribble moves you don't even see regularly, and he'll break defenses off with his dribble and can score off the bounce and pass off of like with live dribble passes. I think his consistency as an outside shooter and of course an on-ball defender are going to be like the things that keep him from being a guy who's going to win an MVP in Europe or being, you know, a starter in the league like Goran Dragic, who can maybe be like an all-star, fringe all-star. But the creativity as a scorer and the smooth handles with the passing ability, I think are awesome. He's got a feel for the game, can run an offense and slide into the off-ball. Just figure out if that's going to translate to the NBA or not, man. You know, it's a big if, but if it does, like, you got a guy who can be a backup. I think the Miami Heat are a great fit. Jace Richardson, people are going to be like, well, could Jace be better? I think Jace is kind of like an Eric Gordon, son of Jason Richardson. And he's got all the tools you want. He might even go earlier than Ben Seraph. I think his ceiling isn't as high. I think best case scenario, he's high teens, maybe a 20-point scorer on either a bad team or a superstar team where he's in an Eric Gordon role next to like James Harden or Eric Gordon in the Pelicans on the Pelicans. And he's like more of a below the rim player. They're not saying he's unathletic, but it's not his dad. Let me tell you that. But being a secondary passer, he's an undersized 2 guard with some point guard abilities, but he's really a smooth operator, plays really good defense, got a great jumper, got a good handle, crafty, plays technical, kind of a smaller Dante DiVincenzo if you want another comparison. So I think he's somebody who's going to have a good career. There's some kinks that need to be ironed out. LeBaron Philon. I love LeBaron. This guy, physically, you're going to be reminded of Emmanuel quickly. But game-wise, this is a guy, 11 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1.5 steals, just a dog defensively. He's just going to come at you like a hound. Just a lengthy two-way guard who's got a huge wingspan. He's going to be a point of attack defender who's going to disrupt people. He can play the 1 or the 2. Gets downhill. He'll attack. He can catch fire from deep. And I think the whole thing is like he's either going to be a really good like backup point guard and maybe like a Chris Dunn once he fills out, or he's going to be able to kind of be like the defensive player with two-way ability to kind of follow an offensive game like Emmanuel quickly. I think is like I'm going to give him that comp. So he's someone that I really think that is going to be fine and fun. And yeah, so I wonder with that one if you guys agree with that. Also, Kingsley, who are you wondering 6'5"? So let's go ahead and move to the next guy. And that's going to be our boy. This is a guy that I'm not as high on, but I know people from Canada are huge on this guy. 6'8" Will Riley. I think he's just kind of a slasher. He's a 2-guard. He was supposed to be a 6'8" point guard. He's hard to like, dude. Defenses have trouble, covering him on closeouts because of that 6'8" frame. He moves well without the ball. He can dribble. He's got like point guard background, and he can finish through contact. I think people look at him or being like, "Oh, he could be the poor man, cheap J-Dub," and I'm so like, he's skinny. He's gonna need some time. I really think his game, if it does come together, he might end up having to be more of a Nickeil Alexander-Walker than trying to be like J-Dub, which I think is being a shot creator who has like the size of a guard and the size of a wing, has guard ability and a smooth jumper. I just think people wanted him to be a point guard when he doesn't really have the floor general abilities. He's just like not a physical player. You just need to develop the shot creativity and the physicality. I just think he's a project that has all the tools to be fun. I just don't want to be the one who figures it out if I'm an NBA team. Cam Jones, dude, this guy's going to get could be the AJ Mitchell of this draft class. Somebody's going to bring in Tyler Kolek back up or replace. He's Tyler Kolek's like Robin. Then he became Batman and he was able to do it all. Had a great season. And to me, I think he's going to be someone that a team that needs a microwave who can create playoff ball and, be a facilitator are going to love. He can score at all 3 levels. He's like 6'5". He can maybe even be a small ball wing like Kent Bazemore, but the ability to score off the dribble, off the catch, pass live dribbles, start a fast break, but as a microwave bench option that the hope is that he can be good enough defensively. I'm taking that bet with this kid. He's fun. He's fun, and I enjoy him. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that one. Now let's talk about Mr. Isaiah Evans, who is a candidate for being one of the best shooters in this draft. He's got a range. He's lanky. He's a wing who's a swing man. He's also a guy who's a willing defender. He barely played, but he put up buckets. He uses his size to contest shots regularly, but he can catch fire. I saw him hit so many threes against Miami. Obviously, he needs to get bigger. I think anybody who sees him is going to be like, he needs to get better. But, dude, this guy who was, hitting 7 threes. Not 7 threes, but, insane. I think if you look at his 36 numbers, it was an insane amount of threes. And to me, he was someone that I really enjoyed watching in college as the season went on and he got more confident. Per 40, he was putting up 12 3-point attempts and he was making 5 of them a game. That is absurd numbers. Absurd numbers. This kid is going to be good. I think, like, in terms of long career, just being a 3-and-D guy. Ding Pate, I think people thought was going to be like the Trey Murphy prospect of this draft class, the way we look at Carter Bryant. But I think the biggest thing is it just hasn't came together. And I don't mean to be rude. In like 2 years, like, still, like, his per 36, he's like he's not the microwave that you want, and he takes too many shots inside, and he needs to be more of an outside creator, and he isn't good enough of a scorer inside. So I think that's the biggest thing for me with him, is that he just needs to get better at creating his shot, because for the most part, he does it inefficiently, and he doesn't provide you much outside of that. But he's 6'8", like, you like the thought of that in theory. So, and then Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier is an absolute animal when it comes to shooting. He was able to leave North Florida and show that it wasn't a fluke and continue to be one of the best scorers in college basketball. And we're talking about a guy that is 6'4", 175 pounds. He went from putting up 7.5 threes at North Florida to 8.5 this year. Slight little drop, but per 40, he's putting up 10.5 threes a game. He's someone that is a volume shooter, and that's a skill that's going to be always beloved in the NBA. Now, let's move over to the final one, which is, of course, the point guards. So, our point guards. Who are they and why? I might take a sip of water, stay hydrated, ladies and gentlemen. So, Dylan Harper, Gaspar Yakuchunas, Jeremiah Fears, Yagor Demon, Nolan Traore, Boogie Flan, Walter Clayton Jr., Sergio De La Rea, Tyrese Proctor, and Mark Shears are my top 10 point guard position. So I think when you look at this draft, the black left-handed, I don't know why I said black, but like I was gonna say Cade Cunningham is the black Luka Doncic and Dylan Harper is the left-handed Cade Cunningham. My brain farted right there. So put it in that order. If originally, I think Şagun's passed Sabonis, but for a while they were saying it was Jokic, Sabonis, Şagun. I think this really could be Doncic, Cade Cunningham, Harper, in terms of guys who have the potential to be pretty freaking solid. I love his game. He plays slow, fast. He can create. I think he's a guy who could surprise people and end up being better than Cooper Flagg. He has that downhill ability, draws fouls. He's got NBA size. He can be a pick and roll ball handler. He can score off the pick and roll. He's got the ability to use his body to draw defenders and finish through contact. He's got the pull-up game, everything you want, and he's a willing defender. I think the kid can be really good. Now, next up is Gaspar Yakuchunas, who I talked with somebody, and, kind of like a Tyrese Halliburton-esque guard. He can play on or off ball. He's a high IQ player from Lithuania. He's got this hard grit and just sees passing angles that few players his age do. He controls pace, protects the ball when he's on fire, and then he'll lose the ball. He loses the ball sometimes and turns the ball over when he struggles a lot. But when he's on fire, he's like damn near unstoppable. Yeah, he technically lacks the burst, but I think his size and his ability to be like a creator is what makes up for him being not the best of a shooter. So, or not shooter, of a ball protector. Like, he turns the ball over. I think the ball, like, something you'll notice is like his assist to turnover ratio is rough. It's really rough, but can score, rebound. I really just see, like, he screams one or two you're going to develop. At worst case worst, you got a guy who can either be all-star potential or a really good player off the bench. Jeremiah Fears, the one that people said, oh, Monte Ellis, Jamal Murray hybrid. And I like him. I think he's someone that could be really good. And he's got the point guard skills. Got a little bit more, I think, combo guard game. But I think you're going to try to develop him first as a point guard due to the fact that he brings the speed, the shifty ball handling, and the fearlessness that you want scoring-wise. And he's great behind the arc. And he flashes the ability to be, a lead guard. I think worst comes to worst, if the shooting comes around and he doesn't pan out as a point guard, he's someone that with being, if he does become a better defender, he can be a microwave off the bench who can score for you in bunches and isn't like an absolute cone. I just think, is the shot going to be there? I don't think he's as like athletic as Monte Ellis is, but I think he's damn near a good player and someone that I would bet is going to figure it out. So just keep an eye out for him. And I think he's just somebody that I would definitely say has a really high ceiling. Not as high as this guy. Yagor Demon is someone that I would definitely go ahead and put together a huge reel. Show him what he could do at Real Madrid. Show him what he could do at BYU. The shot could not fall at BYU. It looked better overseas than it did here. He's a jumbo guard. He's someone that, look, if it all comes together, he's a more athletic, Josh Giddey. All right. He's got that Josh Giddey, Ben Simmons passing ability. Not as athletic as Ben Simmons, but he can dissect defenses. He can run point. He's like 6'10". He's the penultimate high reward, high risk player. He just couldn't hit the right side of a barn, and it was really weird because he was also not able to find a shot. Like, he can initiate offense, he can orchestrate the half court set, and he has the dribble decision making to do it all. It's just when it comes to him shooting, he's inept at it, and I don't know why his shot's so anemic, but I think that's something that's workable. Nolan Traorm, I had someone say that this guy is like similar to Kellyan Hayes. He got better over the year. He shot well. Like, he can be physical and aggressive, and he surprised a lot of people last year. Throughout the season, he had some growing pains. He ended the year really like his shot falling, and he has the crafty and poise and the pick and roll ball handling ability to figure it out. I think he is like Kellyan Hayes, Jamal Murray hybrid, where like he could be a guy that ends up being like a 2 guard who can play on or off ball. It's just like he offers little like upside as a defender, and he's kind of a risky pick because he may never be more than just a spot starter and a solid backup, maybe along the lines of a Corey Joseph. And that's like not a bad career. That's fine. It's just maybe somebody that you want to draft at the end of the first or later. I'd rather have Boogie Fland, who I think could be like the Rob Dillingham of this draft class. He is just so much fun to watch, a great shot. He ended up getting hurt, so that's why he didn't play as many games, but 13 points. The shot when he came back wasn't as good, but the slipperiness he has in his game to play on or off ball, I know he's only like 6'2", and he's just someone who's going to at least be a microwave shooter off the bench. He's got quick twitch ability and can score at all 3 levels. He's just got to show that he can defend, stay healthy, and be a bit more of a creator for his teammates. Now, next up, we have ourselves a guy that I think is like, if you put Freddie VanVleet and Mr. Patty Mills in a lab, you get yourself this guy who's a seasoned, tough guy like Fred VanVleet, but he has the ability to play as an undersized 2 guard or be a 1 like Patty Mills, who plays on or off the ball. He'll hit his pull-ups. He'll defend, bigger guards than him. He's a plug-and-play backcourt piece for me, especially a team that needs a backup point guard. I would go ahead and get him because I think he's just someone that I would just really, really, really enjoy seeing contending team. Like, we've talked about it before, who's a team that needs a backup point guard, and that is the Denver Nuggets, and he's someone that could help their backup point guard woes. And another one, the Miami Heat, if they were, like, let's say, to trade back, they could go and get a guy like Walter Clayton. I think he's a tough combo guard with point guard like skills. And best case scenario, dude, this is a guy who could develop like Fred VanVleet and just be a steal for somebody. I really do like the potential of Walter Clayton Jr., which is a great story too. Sergio de la Rea, he's a bit skinny playing for Valencia. He's gotten better as the season's gone on, in my opinion. 6'6", I believe. Some people have put 6'4" or 6'5", but 6 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists a game. And to me, I think that he's somebody that it's a bit of a flyer. You're going to want to take him either as a draft or stash, but he's tall enough to see where the defense is. He's a bomber. He's a willing shooter. He makes great reads. He plays with this stoic, calm demeanor. And obviously the defense and the consistency is something you want to see more, but he's a guy who could be a 6'6" 3-point shooting point guard that everybody wants, or worst comes worst, he's a secondary playmaker, and you're cool with that. So let's talk about the last two, and the next one is Tyrese Proctor, who could be this like great pick and roll orchestrator, a defender that guards 1 and 2, basically maybe like a poor man's Dyson Daniels. He's a guy who can go ahead and be a catch and shoot 3-point shooter who's great this year for Duke, and I think he's somebody that I really just enjoy what he's been able to do as he finds teammates, defends 1, 2s, and 3s. The jump shot's a bit shaky, but almost 6'6", 6'4", 6'5" I've seen. He's tall enough to play multiple positions, and I think he's a plug and play. If you need a backup point guard who's going to be a bit of an older player who's going to be a pro, I think this is the guy you go for. And then the Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shed of this class is Mark Sears. He's an efficient bucket getter who's tough-nosed. He's got a decent first step. He isn't going to be your primary facilitator or scorer, but he's a willing passer. He's got the toughness, the ability to defend multiple positions, aka just both backcourt spots. He is a little undersized, but I think he could carve out a career as a bench player. So that's right there, my point guards. And yeah, so let me hear your thoughts on that one. Now, look, do we do the sleepers right here or no? I think we could do the sleepers, and then we'll like chill out, I think is the best way to put it, or wrap up this stream. So let's go ahead and do the last couple that I think the one I want to do is the sleepers. So today I'll be talking about my favorite sleepers, guys that I think who have the potential to outplay their draft spot. Bulajub, Markovic, if Cedric Cower remains in the draft. Milos Uzan. Is it Milos or Milos? It's definitely a Serbian or like Yugoslavian name. Maxime Renault, Tyrese Proctor, Sergio de la Rea, Kobe Rea, LeBaron Philon, Adu Thiero, and Jean Berenger. So I guess we'll talk about all of them in quick succession. Don't want to keep you all here all day, but hit that like and subscribe button if you rocked here. The 19-year-old John Berenger is a guy that I've really enjoyed seeing his game develop. He's an athletic big who rebounds, sets solid screens, and he finishes well inside. As a rim runner, he'll catch lobs. Yeah, his offensive game might not develop outside of being a Mitchell Robinson-esque player, but the physicality and effort, I think, will allow him to be someone who goes way earlier than you anticipate in the draft board. Now, Adu Thiero, I saw this guy like jump multiple times and get like, I felt like his whole head above the rim when he played Miami. The shot is questionable, but he's someone who's going to be able to carve out a Derrick Jones Jr.-esque role that you bet on the athleticism regardless of his age and the fact that he's so strong and 6'7", 6'8". He's going to be able to guard 1 through 4. Give him a few years. I think he's a guy that goes from being a transition slasher to, like I said, Derek Jones figuring out how to be a great, I mean, he's already a solid defender, being a guy who can be a complementary offensive piece, either as a lob threat, transition piece, or spacing the floor as he gets older and starts to, you know, flesh out his toolkit. Now, LeBaron Philem, I think this is the guy that is, his body is like reminiscent of Emmanuel Quickly. If you watch his physical profile, he's a bit lankier, great defender, more of a combo guard, but with point guard like ability. People are probably going to try to play him at the point. He can play the 1 or the 2. He's got a willingness to play this like herky jerky, twitchy game to get himself all the way to the rack. If the 3-point shot comes around, I just think he's a guy that instinctually he has what you want when you look at a player who is 6'4", has the desire to compete on both ends, using his wingspan to disrupt defenses, and he attacks regularly downhill and then will catch fire deep. I know he's young and everything, but those are just tools that you want to see in guys. Now, to me, next up you got Kobe Brea. This is somebody that, if you guys haven't been watching, I think he could be a sneaky good shooter in the NBA. Somebody who's going to come in. He transferred from Dayton to Kentucky. And, dude, this guy, per 40, he was putting up 8.5 threes. And on the season, he was putting up 5.9. Last year, he was putting 6.1. Just bombing. And up per 100 possessions, that's for his college career, 12 threes a night. He's someone who is able to just put points up on bunches, and he actually competes on defensive end. He creates a little bit, and I think he's just somebody that is going to surprise people and be a player who's going to impact off the bench regardless of where he goes in the draft. Now, Sergio de la Rea is someone that you guys might not know, a 6'6" or 6'5" Valencia Spaniard point guard who has the ability to play on or off ball. He's a good pick and roll player, but what he loves to do is run the pick and roll and then shoot if you go underneath. Yeah, the defense and like the playmaking is still like questionable if he's gonna be a player who, well, I don't know if I'm reading. Damn, we might have to change this because I'm reading that Sergio de la Rea is not going to be in the draft anymore. So ignore Sergio. We're going to move on to Tyrese Proctor. I think Tyrese Proctor could be the poor man's right here. Poor man's Dyson Daniel with more of a point guard skill. He came out. He's a multi-positional defender. He's a guy who's going to be able to guard 1, 2, 3s. He's going to be able to run the pick and roll. And he's shown to be a low-volume three-point shooter. Like, he kind of could be, like, obviously he's not the same size or same player, but like a Tyus Jones-esque guard. And honestly, if that's what you end up like getting or bringing in, I think that's pretty solid. And I would not be at all opposed to having a guy like that, because for me, I think Tyrese Proctor is the type of older player teams want at the guard spot, because the only question is the shooting. And if that comes around, he's going to be a guy who can play defense, create for others, be a 1, a 2, a secondary or a primary facilitator. And I have no problem dealing or, being a team that has a second round pick and is in need of a guy who can, spell the minutes whenever my starter, like Denver, could do. I think Maxime Renault is going to be probably one of the biggest steals in this draft class. He's a guy who played the 4, the 5, kind of got like a Santi Aldama game with a way more defense. He can be a drop coverage big. He can be a floor spacing big. He can pass from the elbow. He can pass from the inside. He's a guy who's going to run DHOs. And I just think some team is going to bring him in. He's going to be a backup big who's going to end up being on the all-rookie team. And people are going to be shocked about how effective he is just by being a second-round pick or wherever he goes. Or he can end up being a guy who surprises people and ends up going late first, because he just has the ability to pass, the dribble, the shoot, and is also a decent defender, way more athletic. He's 7'1" almost. So I think that's just what you want from a multi-year starter. I had a friend who told me he was going to be player of the year before the season started, and what happened? He ended up being player of the year. So I just think guys like that who people have just seen develop are pretty solid bets to bring in as a backup big if you have a defensive big. Now, Milos Uzan is someone that I really like, that I think has the potential to end up being a kind of like Tyrese Proctor, a steady, mature championship level or, high pressure experienced guard who's good assist to turnover numbers and plays within a team's scheme is incredibly valuable, and any coaching staff is going to really enjoy bringing him in. So yeah, he's 6'4", he's played several years, but he's someone who's just continuously gotten better, and I've really enjoyed his game. Now, Cedric Coward, he barely played this past season. He's someone that's transferring to Duke if he does withdraw from the draft. But man, dude, this guy could end up being one of the best shooters in the draft. He's insane. Listen to this. This last year, he put up 4.2 at Eastern Washington, and he was hitting them at 38%. This year, he's putting up 5 threes in the 6th game and was hitting them at 40%. If you looked at 100 possessions, he was putting up 8.5 threes, 6 on per 40. He's just someone who would have been a high-level scorer. He can guard multiple positions. He's basically like Concanipple, but underrated and is a sleeper. He can, orchestrate some offense, create for other people. He had 3.7 assists. He's a guy who can defend 1 through 4. He's massive, dude. This is a guy who's 6'6", 200 pounds. He's got a huge wingspan. He's an athlete and just a confident scorer with just so many moves in his bags that I really, really think that he's someone that could just sneak and surprise people, that goes in the first round and is way more impactful than you think. Now, you could also just go to college and just continue to dominate there, but man, he's exciting, and I've been surprised just by like how much people have also been in similar like agreement that he's going to be someone that's going to come in and be good regardless college or the NBA. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about Bogey Bogdanovic Markovic. I love Markovic. All right, I've talked about this repeatedly, and I just think Markovic is a guy that's going to be able to come in, and I think his combination of pass, dribble, shoot, he has, I've said it before, Santi Alama, Pascal Siakam mix. He's a hybrid who's going to be able to play moonlight the 3, moonlight the 5. He moves great for a 6'11" with a 7-foot plus wingspan. He's got a shot that hits consistently from beyond the arc. He's a willing rebounder. He'll finish everything within 5 feet. He loves to flush it down. His defense isn't like insane. Like, I think best case scenario is going to be a weak side rim protector, but the offensive upside is worst comes to worst. I think he's going to be a Santi Aldama level defender. I mean, offensive player, and I guess defense like that. But I think his offensive ability is so very similar to Pascal Siakam. And to me, when you look at a guy like that, someone who almost averaged like 6 boards in one of the toughest leagues. And when he was on Belgrade the year before, he averaged almost a double-double. So this year, 14 and 7. He averaged 2.5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block game, 55% from the field, 41% from 3. Those numbers are insane. And I thought Pascal's 6'8", 245. But when you have a guy like Bogey who's 6'11", 230, the agility and the gazelle-like strides that he brings are formidable for someone of his size. He's elite at ball handling and being just kind of a threat running the court for just being a teenager. He's got moves. He can spin. He can cross over. He'll attack the rim and dribble penetrate. He's also a willing defender. He'll hustle, especially on the perimeter. And he's a guy who wants the ball in the clutch moments. His 3-point shot, yeah, it was good this year and it's fallen. I think he's going to be able to come in, contribute early, and then just grow from there. So I think he's going to be a guy who shocks everybody and contribute way sooner than you would imagine because of the intangibles. And yeah, like I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about all of this? Because the sleepers are always interesting, and I think it's definitely based on your opinion. So I want to hear your thoughts. Who is going to be your sleeper in this year's NBA draft and why? Do you guys have somebody that maybe I didn't mention or you think isn't being mentioned that should be? Let me know who those would be, because I think the NBA draft is one of the most fun times to watch, especially the players who are sleepers. All right, guys, I'm out. That's it. 1 hour and 45 minutes. Jesus.